Imagine a vast army, so immense it was said to drink rivers dry, a force so overwhelming that its very approach sent tremors through the land. The dust from their march blotted out the sun, and the sound of their footsteps echoed like thunder across the plains. This was the Persian army, marching to conquer a nation of fiercely independent city-states, each with its own customs, rivalries, and dreams of freedom. The world had never seen such a force, and few believed it could be stopped. Standing in their path was a tiny force, just 300 Spartans led by King Leonidas, and a few thousand allies from other Greek cities. They were outnumbered hundreds to one, yet they chose to make their stand. This wasn't a battle they expected to win, but a stand they knew they had to make. They understood that their sacrifice could ignite a fire of resistance across Greece. The Spartans were professional soldiers, trained from birth in a brutal system called the agoge. From childhood, they learned to endure pain, hunger, and fear, forging themselves into living weapons. Their discipline and unity were legendary. Their mission was to buy time and show Greece what it meant to fight for freedom. They would hold the line at Thermopylae, the narrow gateway to the heart of Greece, for as long as humanly possible. The Persian king Xerxes commanded an army that stretched for miles. Infantry, cavalry, archers, and war machines all united under his banner. He believed no force could withstand his might. Against this, the Greeks placed a few thousand men in a narrow pass, where numbers counted for less, and courage counted for everything. The terrain became their ally, turning the tide of battle, if only for a moment. It was a calculated sacrifice, a strategic decision made with cold, hard logic. The Greeks knew that by holding the Persians here they could rally the rest of Greece to their cause. This stand at the Hot Gates became a legend, a testament to the idea that the size of an army doesn't determine the size of its heart. The courage of a few could inspire the many. It shows that a few determined individuals can stand up to overwhelming odds, and that the will to resist can be more powerful than any weapon. Their story isn't one of victory, but of a moral triumph that inspired a nation. The sacrifice at Thermopylae became a rallying cry, uniting the Greeks in their darkest hour. It's a lesson written in the courage of men who stood up to an empire, refusing to bow even when defeat was certain. The legend of Thermopylae echoes through history, inspiring generations to value freedom, bravery, and sacrifice above all else. It's a story of courage, sacrifice, and the fight for freedom, a reminder that even in the face of impossible odds, the human spirit can shine brightest. On one side stood the mighty Persian Empire, ruled by the ambitious King Xerxes, whose name alone inspired both awe and fear across the ancient world. Xerxes was the son of Darius the Great, inheriting not only a vast empire but also his father's dreams of expansion and conquest. The Persian realm stretched from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean, a colossal domain built on centuries of conquest, diplomacy, and the assimilation of countless peoples and cultures. Xerxes commanded an army unlike any the world had seen, immense in size, drawn from every corner of his empire, and equipped with the finest weapons and armor that Persian wealth could provide. Opposing this juggernaut was Greece, not a single nation, but a patchwork of fiercely independent city-states scattered across rugged mountains and islands. Athens, the heart of democracy, was a vibrant center for art, philosophy, and debate, where citizens gathered to shape their own destiny. In contrast, Sparta was a society built for war, its people trained from childhood to be soldiers, valuing discipline and strength above all else. Though often divided by rivalries and jealousies, the Greeks shared a common language, worshipped the same gods, and cherished the ideals of freedom and self-rule. These shared beliefs, along with their love of competition and debate, formed the backbone of Greek identity. The seeds of conflict had been sown years before, when Xerxes' father Darius first sought to bring Greece under Persian control, igniting a struggle that would span generations. Now, Xerxes inherited not just an empire, but a burning ambition to finish what his father had started, to subjugate all of Greece and secure his legacy as a conqueror. Faced with the looming threat of invasion, the Greek city-states, despite their differences, forged a rare alliance, setting aside old grudges for the sake of survival. Led by the military might of Sparta and the strategic brilliance of Athens, they prepared to resist, knowing they were vastly outnumbered but refusing to surrender. Their hope rested in their unbreakable spirit, rigorous training, and intimate knowledge of their homeland's challenging terrain. Mountains, narrow passes, and coastlines that could turn the tide of battle. The Greeks knew they could not win by sheer numbers, so they would have to choose their battlegrounds wisely, using every natural advantage to even the odds. The stage was set for an epic confrontation, a clash not just of armies, but of two fundamentally different civilizations, each fighting for its own vision of the world. For the Greeks, this was more than a battle. It was a defense of their independence, their values, and their right to govern themselves free from foreign domination. Against overwhelming odds, they stood together, ready to fight for their way of life, determined to resist tyranny at any cost. The Greeks needed a battlefield where they could neutralize the Persian advantage. They chose Thermopylae, a narrow coastal pass, perfect for a stand. The pass was a sliver of land, squeezed between mountains and the sea. Here, the Greeks could use their phalanx formation, a wall of shields and spears. The strategic importance was huge, blocking the Persian land invasion. It bought time for Greek defenses and allowed the navy to engage the Persian fleet. For the Spartans, Thermopylae was more than strategic, it was symbolic. The name, the Hot Gates, evoked the gates of Hades. The Spartans knew they were marching to their deaths, but for them, dying in battle was the highest honor. It was the perfect place for a warrior to die, where courage mattered more than numbers. At the head of the Greek force stood King Leonidas of Sparta. A veteran shaped by a lifetime of Spartan training, he was a soldier king. Leonidas was the embodiment of the Spartan ideal, forged by the Agoge. He wasn't originally expected to become king, making him tougher and more respected. The decision to send Leonidas with only 300 men was complex. A religious festival and the Olympic Games limited the Spartan army. The men chosen were elite, each required to have a living son. Leonidas accepted his mission with stoicism, understanding the symbolic sacrifice. His stand was a message to Xerxes and the Greek states that Sparta would not yield. Before leaving, his wife asked what she should do. His reply, "Marry a good man and have good children." His focus was on the continuation of Sparta and its values. His leadership anchored the Greek defense at the Hot Gates. The Persian army arrived at the Hot Gates and paused. Xerxes waited, confident the Greeks would flee, but they stood firm. The Spartans prepared with rituals, readying for battle. When the Greeks didn't retreat, Xerxes ordered the attack. The first wave was slaughtered, unable to break the Greek phalanx. The Greeks fought in rotation, maintaining their line. Xerxes watched in frustration as his forces were cut down. The confined pass nullified his numerical advantage. The Greeks used clever tactics, luring Persians into traps. By the end of the first day, the Greek line held, proving men, not numbers, win battles. The Spartans and their allies showed unshakable discipline and mastery of warfare. Xerxes sent in his elite troops, the Immortals, on the second day. This was the king's personal bodyguard, expected to succeed. But at the Hot Gates, they met the same fate as the others. The narrow terrain was the great equalizer, nullifying their numbers. The Spartans and their allies stood firm, fighting with resolve. The Immortals, for all their fame, couldn't break the Greek line. By the end of the second day, the myth of the Immortals was shattered. Xerxes was desperate, his invasion stalled, morale sinking. The pile of Persian dead was a testament to the futility of his attacks. The Hot Gates seemed impassable, but a new threat was emerging. A hidden path threatened to change the course of the battle. Xerxes' hope, which had begun to fade after days of fierce resistance, was suddenly rekindled by the actions of Ephialtes, a Greek from Malis. Driven by personal motives, Ephialtes revealed to the Persians a secret mountain path that bypassed the main Greek defenses. This hidden trail wound its way behind the Greek position at Thermopylae, offering the Persians a backdoor to the Hot Gates and threatening to encircle the defenders. Leonidas, aware of the possibility of betrayal, had stationed a contingent of Phocian soldiers to guard this very path, hoping to prevent any surprise attack from the rear. But the Phocians, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the Persians in the early morning mist, were overwhelmed and failed to send a warning to Leonidas in time. As the first light of dawn broke on the third day, Leonidas received the grim news. His force was now surrounded, with no hope of escape. Facing the reality of encirclement, Leonidas was confronted with a fateful decision: attempt a retreat and risk annihilation, or stand and fight to the last man. Many of his allies, fearful for their lives and the fate of their cities, urged Leonidas to order a full retreat and preserve what remained of the army. But Leonidas, bound by Spartan law and his own sense of honor, made a different choice. He ordered the majority of the Greek forces to withdraw, ensuring their survival for future battles. Only a small band remained with him, his 300 Spartans, along with loyal Thespians and Thebans, each man prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. For Leonidas, this was more than a battle. It was a stand for honor, duty, and the hope of inspiring all of Greece to resist tyranny. The Spartan code was unyielding. A true Spartan never retreats, never surrenders, no matter the odds. This final stand was not just a fight for survival, but a defiant roar against overwhelming darkness, a moment destined to echo through history. The courage and sacrifice at Thermopylae would ignite the spirit of resistance across Greece, inspiring generations to come. With the main Greek force retreating, Leonidas and his rearguard prepared for the end. They advanced into a wider section of the pass, aiming to inflict maximum casualties. The fighting on the third day was a brutal frenzy. The Spartans and Thespians fought with a fury born of certainty of death. Leonidas fell in battle, a king dying amongst his men. A fierce struggle erupted over his body, a final act of loyalty. Eventually, the sheer numbers of the Persian army proved too much. The remaining Greeks made their final stand on a hillock. Xerxes ordered his archers to finish the job and the last defenders fell. Their sacrifice was not in vain, it was a staggering moral victory. The story of the 300 Spartans spread, inspiring Greece. It showed that the mighty Persian Empire was not invincible. The Battle of Thermopylae became a legend, a symbol of courage and sacrifice. After the Persians were defeated, the Greeks honored their dead. A stone lion commemorated Leonidas, and an epitaph captured their sacrifice. The story of Thermopylae has been retold for over 2,000 years. It represents the defense of freedom against tyranny. Military leaders have studied the battle for its lessons in strategy and morale. The courage of the 300 has inspired countless soldiers. The legacy of Thermopylae is more than a military story. It's a human story. It highlights the power of a unifying idea, freedom. The spirit of a people can be a formidable weapon. Learning about Thermopylae connects us with struggles that shaped our world. These stories teach us about courage, honor, and the price of freedom. The echoes of the hot gates still resonate today, reminding us of what we stand for.